All right, we'll jump into our topics, and we're gonna kick off actually with Lonnie's topic because we do have a question that's backed into it. So, Lonnie, your topic for the week.
Oh, I get to go first again? Man, dear
Yeah,
penthouse forum, let's do this. Anyway, so debit
it's a
card,
weird way to go.
showing some age there.
I'm showing some. I shouldn't have been paying attention to some of my parents' stuff.
So debit cards are starting to get rewards. And I would even say some pretty good ones and more often. So Amex has, if you have an Amex checking account, you get half a point per dollar or 1 point for every $2 you spend on a debit card, and that's membership reward points. PayPal has a pretty strong five back, choose your own category debit card as well. With these credit card refreshes and this credit card recession happening, not my term, but one that I hear often. Do you see debit cards starting to make a comeback or gaining an edge in a sense? So, where using PayPal and their 5% cash back, we talk about cashback cards, and you go get this card and get X percent back. Well, now I can just go get a PayPal debit card, doesn't hit my credit report, and I'm getting cash back on one specific category that I want, whether it be grocery or gas or shopping or whatever. So, do you think debit cards are going to start making a comeback, or are they starting to gain an edge? RJ, I'm going to kick this one off to you first.
I think the people who are likely to use debit cards with any frequency are likely to hit these up. But I think most of us in the credit card community don't like debit cards for reasons that the rewards aren't going to change. Right? If my debit card is taken and somebody is able to use it, that or somebody's PIN is written, I know somebody who has their PIN written on their debit card. They are I've begged them to remove it. And they will not because I don't know. At this point, I have had so many conversations with them, and I still don't know why it's there. So you do you, bro. But if that money is gone, right? If I say I didn't take that money out of that ATM, it's very hard for me to ever see that money again. Where if somebody takes my platinum card and goes to Dubai and is shopping, and I report that to American Express, I am reasonably sure that those charges will be removed. Can never be 100% sure, right? Like weirder things have happened. Reddit is full of examples, but I have reasonable protections of that. So that doesn't change just because the card has rewards, right? That is not something that is changeable based on just the card having rewards. So I think it's good for people who want to use debit cards. For people either they had bankruptcy issues or they just don't trust themselves with credit cards or they can't get a credit card that they want. I think these are good options. I think even people who I have the Amex rewards checking account. I have a debit card in my backup wallet. If I needed it, it's there, but it's not something that I would reach for outside of a very narrow set of circumstances, right? So I think for most of us in the credit card community, it's not where we're going to focus. Even the cashback people, I think there are safer options based on the credit card protections that we'll tend to lean towards, but it is another tool in the tool brush, right? There's the lasso tool in most image editing things. You don't use that tool unless you really need that tool, right? That is a very specific use case, but nothing else is going to do what that tool will do. So some of these debit cards, nothing is going to do what they will do. So it's a very specific tool in the toolbox, but it's not one you're going to use a lot or not one most people will use.
Cool. So, Matt, your favorite debit card.
That thing, the CSP of debit card. No, I'm kidding. It's really the City Custom Cash of debit cards because the only reason why anybody's talking about that debit card is it takes the City Custom Cash model and just doubles it. Okay, cool, $50 versus 25, but 25 can be moved to transfer partners if you want to. Anyway, before I go on that, we did have another question that I wanted to kind of like layer into this, and this came from Sliced Diced 314, who had asked, could you please do pro con cashback debit cards, examples, the PayPal debit card, the future debit card versus traditional cashback credit cards? What are best practices to utilize them given they're riskier and in their view temporary in terms of potential rewards and existence? I do think we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of some points earning debit cards, and that the only reason why this is becoming the case is going back to the Durbin Amendment back in the Dodd-Frank bill, where institutions with assets less than $10 billion could still do full debit card rewards. We've had the ability to do extra rewards on debit cards for a couple of years. Like, I've had a Stash account for a while. Stash has their Stash back debit card. You can get stocks in various companies that you purchase from. I haven't used it because while like the idea of getting cash back for like getting more stock in some companies that I buy from is appealing, I haven't done it because it's a debit card. There's the Acorns debit card, does the same thing. Robinhood has a debit card that you can also get like additional stock, and stock is probably better bang for your buck or better value than some of these other cards like the PayPal card or one membership reward or half a membership reward per dollar spent, or the future debit card, which is like the most interesting of them because you can get like your MTA in New York City. All of those can get paid back like within a day when they run their 100% cash back on New York City subway systems. I think they do the same thing with the LA Metro. So like debit cards, there are debit cards with reward structures that are certainly interesting, and we're seeing a bit of a resurgence for them. Again, the biggest con is always going to be there's no recourse if something happens to that debit card. Like your Stash account, like whatever money you have in your Stash account can get drained. And God help you if they turn your Stash card into logging into your Stash account and then draining your Stash account, the stock side of things. Your PayPal, they could get that and get all of that. Your Amex, now you're talking about your money with Amex, right? So that is always going to be the biggest thing. Are there fears of a credit card recession? Yes. Do I know where to gauge that? No. Credit is a very specific tool. Credit has very specific rules, and credit has very specific protections. A lot of us, I can't say that all of us, but a lot of folks in the credit card game are more than likely in it for those protections, in it for the flexibility of when you pay. Because with debit, the other thing is that money right there. If you've got $58 left in your checking account and you pay $70 on the Stash back card, you're paying an overdraft fee. That's more than the $70 purchase. Was that really where it was getting like 4% stock back at Nike worth paying an overdraft fee? I wouldn't say so. So a lot of us who take to the credit card side of things go for protections, go for fraud, limited liability, go for just having the ability to pay credit to pay their credit card bill when their credit card bill is due because they know that they're going to be good for it. Debit's great, and if you have the ability to debit and build out rewards that way, cool. It's nice that you're getting more options. If you're somebody who lives the debit life, awesome. I'm glad that your checking account is far larger than mine. But I can't always rely on that because you don't want to be stuck in the situation where you got $58 left and you make a $70 charge because you weren't paying attention. So I do think that I think that they're seeing a resurgence. I don't know if they're gaining an edge, but I do think that for the people that they can work for, they've got plenty of options and opportunity.
Yep, I would agree with both of you, but I would add one more thing, and that's to be fully inclusive here. But what about those folks out there that might not be 18 or have a 500, 600 credit score. It still gives some of the reward, some of the cashback options. Now, will it ever be anything like a true rewards credit card? No, but it's something. It helps subsidize something, whether it be cashback or points, depending on which ecosystem you want to go with. It helps subsidize something. And I think if you are a novice, someone just getting in, or someone that just is not capable to get into the rewards game, like I say, because your credit score is not great enough to get approved for a good card that could allow some of the joys that we have, I think, then yes, these types of debit cards could be a good solution.
I I think for those rebuilding, regaining credit, there's certainly something that can be done, that something to be said for sticking to a budget, like having that budget for themselves and sticking to that budget and making sure that they have the money to pay for the thing, which is good. I just don't know if they stick to debit cards and they never get past debit cards and trying to get like a secure credit card or secure loan, or starting to do the things like they learn to budget with a debit card really good, but then they're stuck there because they didn't look at credit options and ways to rebuild, like the next steps in rebuilding their credit. I do think that I'm not going to say that there's a rewards trap there. That's a silly thing to say, but I do think that they could, there's a potential that they just hamstring themselves to just sticking with that debit. And if they do and they never hit rock bottom again, cool, right? We're not here to judge anyone on any particular thing that they end up doing. As for teenagers and those who can't get a credit card just yet, there again, a very valid point. I do think that at least when it comes time for my little one, like teaching them about credit is going to be pretty important. But I know that not everyone takes that approach. So yeah, being able to budget that way and learning how to budget and getting rewards for following your budget is a plus. But we got to keep adding arrows to that quiver at some point.
There's another group that we didn't super touch on, and I know this is crazy to say on a podcast about credit cards, but not everybody wants a credit card. Like,
True.
there are people, like my best friend hates the fact that I made her get a credit card. And I made her get a credit card because I wanted her to have a credit score. Because she doesn't have a car loan, house is paid off, all of that, right? She has nothing that would pull a credit score. So I made her get a credit card after having her be an authorized user on one of my cards for a while to jumpstart things to be able to get her a card. Like, she has zero interest. If I gave her the option between a debit card that gave her rewards or the credit card that she currently has, she would take the debit card every time because she likes that model better. She humors me by having a credit card and a credit score, so if something happens, she's not completely SOL, right? There are people like her, people who grew up, they didn't have any debt, but their parents did or their grandparents did, and they just have no interest in credit cards, or they just never had an interest in credit cards, right? And I do think that this is a good option for them. Do I think using credit, like you were talking about, Matt, is important? Yes. But this is still something that is not a requirement for life, right?
Yeah.
You can get by in life without credit cards. You can get by in life with budgeting. I've come from farm country. I know somebody who saved, his father saved $327,000 to build a house because he was not going to take out a loan. He was not going to have any sort of credit. It was in the bank. And he paid for, I'm sure, hundreds of trips to Lowe's for all of the supplies to build the house from a normal checking account. Because I'm in farm country and people don't always trust banks here. So there are people for who this might be an option. This is probably the best group of people to have this option, right? Is people who are just not interested in credit cards, don't care, don't maybe they don't even have a credit score because it's just not what they want. So that group, I do think this is a very good option for, but for most people, probably not.
They're going to be flying a lot of Spirit Airlines and staying in a lot of Wyndhams.
But
Upcoming debit cards as well.
also, a lot of these people don't travel.
There's
They
that.
might do one vacation a year. So does it really matter if you're doing a road trip and you stay at a Wyndham? No, you're probably going to stay roughly equivalent to that anyway.
That's true.
Not everyone is us. I know that's shocking for our listeners to hear, but the travel community is not the majority of people on this earth.
If anyone is shocked that they aren't one of us, then we have a very large problem.
Been doing this nearly a year. Yeah. In this case, we're not like them. All right. So thanks, Lonnie. I'll do